long as everything's just,
Wait a minute. Ted has a baby?
Uh-oh. Well, this is new.
this one.
Yeah.
That he knows of, at least.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All
Yeah.
right.
This is Ted's wheelhouse.
Yeah. Virgil, you're home. Glad to see that. I'm not home, but I'm here. So
I did get a kick out of the marked safe from 01 Romeo as much as I
he left terribly as well. It's like he had to have gotten significant counseling on the ground, right? And then to do that on the way out.
Yeah.
So
That almost feels like a middle finger to the people at Oshkosh.
I've got to say the compliance philosophy did not work for him. So yeah. Barry, man, I got compliments about my checklist shirt because I ran out of OB shirts. I realized I should have just taken OB shirts because you see other people in them and you just yell penguin at them and then penguin at them again until they get the idea that they need to respond. And
Iceberg, yeah.
The guy that was in a 172 that was nearest me, I was like, hey, can I borrow your tow bar to get out of here? Also, you're wearing an OB shirt. So, penguin.
Your family.
So I get to keep your tow bar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
I appreciated your video, Ted, when it was you're trying to call, I think you were calling Mark. Yeah, you're calling.
Yeah.
You're like penguin, and he's not getting it, and then it becomes this whole. Okay, well, what I was saying is penguin. You are to respond.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, missed our turn. Oh,
and then there's an air boss on the ground. Oh yeah, penguin was to trying to call it to Fisk, and missed the turn. Got so far behind the plane at that point. That was yeah.
Well, I appreciate you cranking those videos out while you were.
Yeah. I should have had a media pass because I could have gotten that fixed immediately, but instead I was doing it. You guys behind the scenes saw the picture that when we recorded the podcast last week, I was literally sitting on my tire of my plane to try and have somewhere that was level and the sound was okay and everything else. And that only fits one cheek. So that was a painful evening, but it worked. So.
Are you guys ready?
I'm ready. You ready?
Yeah. Let me find it here. All right, let's do it.
Welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast. What is it like to become a pilot in midlife? The challenges are unique, but so are the rewards. Hosts Ben, Brian, and Ted talk learning to fly, growing as pilots, and the joy of flying to destinations. The purpose of the podcast is not to teach, but to share knowledge and experiences. You definitely should not take any advice too seriously from an aviation podcast that uses terms like icing on the vegetables. Okay, checklists are complete. Let's get the show started.
Hello and welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast, where we share the experiences and challenges of flying in midlife. Whether you're a seasoned pilot, you're training for a rating, or just thinking about getting started in aviation, we like to think of the podcast as your aviation companion and your weekly dose of aviation inspiration. My name is Ben, and I am a commercially rated or certificated IFR rated pilot based currently on Hell's Front Porch in the metro Atlanta area. I fly a Cessna 182. I like to call the Beast. Joining me tonight are my friends, my pals, my compatriots, a private pilot in Nashville, home of the Bachelorette Super Charlie. He flies a Cherokee 180 named Lucy. He lives right in the heart of Music Row. It's our friend Brian. Good evening, sir.
Hello, everyone. And by the way, I am not flying a Cherokee named Lucy at all right now. It is 173 degrees. And it's strange to be in a spot where you just go, man, I can think of other places I'd rather be than in the cockpit of an airplane. Unfortunately, that's where we are right now. It is absolutely horrific here. So if you're on the front porch of hell, I'm maybe on the in the Florida room or the I don't know. But anyway, glad you guys are here. Glad everybody else is here in the chat, and I am really excited about tonight's episode because Ted, you are going to be leading us through something that I don't understand. I get to be a listener and a person essentially in the chat tonight. So I'm stoked. No responsibility, all the responsibility.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, our friend Tedder, sport pilot extraordinaire, as you've heard me say many, many times, he's based in Portlandia, but right now he is in an undisclosed location in the canned pumpkin capital. He flies a flight design CTLS. We like to call it the Ed. It's everybody's friend. It's our Ted. Hello, sir.
Hey, so glad to be here. Yeah. It's been a couple of weeks of recording on the road, which is always a little entertaining. So, yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah, I mean, the lengths that you have flown the egg is pretty astounding. It's quite envious to be perfectly frank with you. But want to do a quick flying recap. I did a little flight on Sunday. Took some friends back up to Blue Ridge, kind of one of my favorite go-to to take people that aren't that familiar with flying in small planes. Beautiful scenery, great restaurant, good coffee house. But along the way, since the last time recorded, I found, not only did I find a flight school with the twin, but I found it is the quintessential midlife pilot flight school. You walk into their offices and you are and I say this, not, I love it. So I want you to know where I'm coming from here. You're walking in 1982. The phone systems are from 1982. It's just old school. I did a ground lesson, 2-hour ground lesson last week. And when we were done, he literally had a little invoice that he wrote out, 2 hours ground. I mean, he had the calculator, the adding machine. I was in heaven. It was in absolute heaven. So yeah, tomorrow at 7 a.m. we'll be starting our venture into multi-engine training.
Amazing.
Oh, man, tomorrow. Wow.
7 a.m. We'll be flying a Beechcraft Duchess BE-76 for those who are counting.
So cool. I'm glad you decided to not leak this to any of us until we're on the air. Thank you for that.
Yes.
I'm super excited for you. And by the way, did you pay with a credit card and did you have a swiper?
Actually, I did pay with a credit card and I was waiting for him to pull the swiper out. However, no, he just entered my numbers into his 2001 Windows 3.1 computer. He's a great instructor. He's actually the DPE. There's another flight instructor who I'll go out with probably tomorrow. Just old school, good old fashioned. It's 6-pack round gauge dials on every. I think he does have a 650 in there, and an old Century autopilot. But I mean, it is just as it's just I felt at home the moment I walked into there.
So the plane, are you excited? You're excited about the plane in terms of just
plane as a Duchess. One of the nice things about this one that makes life a little bit easier is that it has counter rotating props.
Yeah.
So as the instructor put it, you have no critical engines, or they're all critical engines.
Yeah.
So
okay, and to the uninitiated or those that don't understand what that means, what does that mean?
So, as we all know, if you've had one instruction from a CFI on a takeoff, you hear him say more right rudder, because the plane has a left turning tendency with the 3 different factors, P, torque, and all of that. Well, in a twin, if you lose the critical engine, which is typically when the props rotate at the same direction, the left engine, you create a significant amount of yawing moment. So that's referred to as the critical engine. And when you're going through training, it's basically right leg day, because your right foot is stomped onto the floor every time that thing goes out. With the counter rotating prop, since they're rotating in opposite directions, you don't get that additional torque.
This is a perfect midlife school. It's no extra physical demands.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it's just everything kind of fell into place. When I called him up, he's like, "Well, I'm not sure what the calendar is." He said, "Why don't you come on by and look at the airplane?" And then I swear to God, I didn't have any notes. I didn't bring anything with me. I didn't have my logbook with me. I just went there to go check out the airplane, make sure it looked good,
Yeah.
check out the school a little bit, ask some questions. Next thing I know, we're sitting down for a 2-hour ground school. Literally. I mean,
That's
I didn't,
great.
and then we pulled out the calendar and we found a lot of decent availability.
And
as
there
well,
weren't cup holders in the plane with half cans of Miller Lite or anything.
No, cigarettes in the ashtray, but no.
What airport is that at?
It's at PDK, Peachtree
Okay.
DeKalb Airport.
Well, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, and it's right by my office. So when I say this fell into place, so I'll go for lessons from 7 to 9, and then my office is 2 miles away from the airport.
Amazing.
that's
And so
awesome.
you should get this done really quickly, I would imagine.
So probably about 2 weeks is what we're thinking.
Yeah.
It depends on how if I don't suck at flying, then maybe it'll go by quick.
Is there a point where you become too good for this podcast?
No, listen. You know me. I'm on the bottom rung. I'm 3 levels below you guys. Just because I've started ahead of you guys doesn't make me. You know how I feel about that. But
All right. Well,
Ted, you want to give us a quick recap because we got a lot of stuff to cover tonight.
Yeah, I basically sat around all of last week until Saturday, and then I timed my exit from Oshkosh. I bounced out. I was trying to get to Badger Pilots Airport, 02 Charlie. Couldn't make it 50 miles to there, so I ended up at Alyssa's Airport, West Bend. I think it's ETB, I'm not sure. Sat there for a minute, and weather got better. Got some spotted cow to put in the plane. Went down to 02 Charlie, got fuel, then went down to St. Louis, spent a night in St. Louis, and then I went back to undisclosed location. So eventually I'll head back toward home, but the next podcast, hopefully I'm home. But I'm already over near Wisconsin, so there's no rush to get home. But yeah, it's nice to be here. So nice to be on the pod.
If the weather is, tricky or all that, and you keep delaying, Oshkosh is just a year away.
Oh man, I could get to Nashville easier than I could get home. So I might be sleeping at your house.
Is that a threat or a promise?
Your choice. Yeah. You know what? I realized why everybody uses beer koozies around here in the Midwest. It's because the cans sweat so much. So on the West Coast, we don't use koozies, but everyone here uses them. So, yeah.
Well, speaking of, if you go to midlifepilotpodcast.com and check out our new merch dump, we have koozies. We have all kinds of good stuff. So check it out. But anyway, you're the one.
By the way, the koozies keep the can cold as well as prevent the condensation from getting over everything.
Well, let me knock out the housekeeping real quick. We'll get this belly scrub done, and then we're going to get into our topic. Have we talked about what our topic's going to be yet?
I don't
Ben's
believe
muted.
So. Yeah.
Ben's
Yeah,
muted.
I mentioned it. When you put all those little tiles together to create the picture. We're going to talk.
All right, let's knock it out. We're grateful for you all making this the best pilot community that we know of, a positive space where we share everything from training experiences, share personal minimums, tackle ownership challenges, review flight plans, and best of all, make new aviation friends. Connect with us. Join our Patreon community from $1 a month or do a one-time annual Patreon, 25 cents per episode. Access exclusive content, including the amazing check ride debriefs led by our friend One Dull Geek, Killing Zone conversations, and more. Get in the Discord and be in the best internet community for pilots anywhere. 10% supports Freedom Aviation Network's anti-human trafficking efforts. Watch us live on YouTube, Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern. Share your stories, feedback, anything you like, midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com. We read all the messages, and you might even hear yours on the show. Probably will. For everything Midlife Pilot Podcast, community feedback, merch, and more, visit midlifepilotpodcast.com. And I'm telling you, there is some really cool new stuff in the shop. And we just did a quick drop into the Discord and gave everybody sort of access there. But now this is full on. So I think you're gonna be pleased. There's a lot of fun things in there. So anyway, Ted, you want to hit our Patreon real quick?
Yeah. First, I'm going to back up a hair. Shout out to Lord Alpha Juliet for volunteering at the Freedom Aviation Network booth.
Oh yeah.
I spent a couple of times that I met Howard, who's on the committee fan. He's one of the big head honchos there. So I went and sat in the booth one morning with AJ at Women Venture, one of those two. It was a nice booth they had, and he volunteered at least several sessions. So
That's so cool. And
that's
Howard's a great
fantastic.
guy. Yeah, Howard's a great guy.
Yeah, Howard was great. It was great to meet him and spend some time. So
Cool.
yeah. So Patreon supporters at the Landomatic level, I want to welcome Mike B and Richard M for joining us.
Thank you.
So yeah, it's always nice to see new people rolling into the Patreon and see if we can scare them off or not. I don't have any updates to the community because I have not been in the community for the last week. So hopefully,
Let me
if
give
I
you a
miss
quick
any
update.
accomplishments, yeah, please do.
There were 1,000 messages. Our community is unbelievable. There was a lot of discussion on the Osh channel because there was a lot of people trying to meet up, and I know that happened. I know you met a lot of our listeners, which I think is really cool. That probably to me made me fear of missing out more than anything else, is that opportunity. But there was just so many different discussions. It's for everybody that hasn't joined our Patreon. I mean, the podcast is okay, but that Discord server is the way to go.
One more thread. Of course, I hung out at Comanche Town most of the week with Virgil and Juliet Victor. Juliet Victor's dad was the safety pilot when our friend Paul Craig was getting his instrument rating.
Wow.
The two of them worked together at McDonald's.
Wow.
They would go in at midnight, or I think 1 a.m., he said, going at 1 a.m. into Nashville and do instrument approaches. So
Wow.
that was awesome. I connected the two via email, and that it's just like, this is a small world, right? So,
I love it. That's so great.
yeah, Josh V, Juliet Victor, and his dad are great people. That was kind of my home for a lot of the week. So,
Yep. I'm lucky enough to have ridden in his Comanche once.
Oh yeah.
That's beautiful. I mean, it's fair to say Comanche is the best airplane. It's possible.
It is a nice plane.
Here's what I want to say. If I ever owned a low wing, it would be a Comanche.
And next year, I think, is the big 75th anniversary of it, so it'll be the featured plane at Oshkosh. So,
That's amazing.
yeah.
Well, I'm gonna hit this feedback real quick,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna get into our topic because this is gonna be rich. Feedback from Steve S. He says, glad to find this channel and all you guys share and do. I'm a newly minted sport pilot, ready to take on that next adventure. However, that is met with some challenges. I have watched Ted's videos. That's not the challenge part, Ted.
Or is it?
I have watched Ted's videos and I'm facing the same things. Keep posting, Ted. Thank you for taking the time to post, edit, and share. Do you guys have a video of all in the same plane together? No, we don't. That would be awesome. Take away from one of your episodes, be where you need to be before noon. That is definitely true. Thanks, Steve S., for that. And we're sorry about Ted's videos, but there is hope.
Will our legal department allow us to get in all three get in the same plane?
I think that it's encouraged that there's no redundancy for this.
Please get all three of you get in the same plane.
So this is a clean.
Here's one with
sweep.
an engine with 4,000 hours on it.
Yeah. I'm just going through all the dark comments, just leaving them alone. So we will move on. Yeah.
Yeah. So tonight,
Thanks,
of
Steve.
course, we're going to be talking about the new Mosaic ruling that was announced last week at Oshkosh. And this really does talk about the light sport aircraft in general and significant changes to it. And our very own Ted, timestamp Tedder, was actually, you were on a committee,
Yes.
I believe,
Yeah.
when this was all being built out. Is that correct?
That is correct. And still on. Yeah.
And so we feel like that this is, we don't typically go for these topics where there's no expertise in there and we're just sharing opinions. We try to stay away from doing that. But Ted is really deep in the weeds, has been following this basically when they started talking about it.
Yeah.
And I believe he brings a unique perspective to it. And it's why we really wanted to tackle this tonight. So, and the other aspect of it is, as let's face it, as midlifers, this has become a lot more easier avenue for all of us to pursue. If you're on the sofa or you're on the bench waiting to maybe get into aviation, the world's just changed.
I want to be clear. The big wins for this are not for the sport pilot. It's for all the pilots. So if you hear this and you're listening, you're like, okay, this is going to be all sport pilot nerdery. It's not. There's a significant part of it that doesn't even apply to sport pilots. There's great news in here for all of us. So, yeah.
Well, why don't you go ahead and start us off? Let's start off with a general overview of what was announced, maybe when it takes effect. And why don't you kick us off? And then Brian and I think I know enough to make myself dangerous, and I don't think Brian hardly knows anything about this. So we'll be asking you questions. So why don't you go ahead and give us a good overview?
I think it's great that you're willing to play dumb on this. I know it's a stretch. So
every time I was looking around, everything was happening and thinking, I need to go do more research. I knew what we were going to be talking about. I just thought, well, I'm just going to check into the Midlife Pilot podcast on Monday and see what's going on.
So last Monday, there was a session at Oshkosh, and it was kind of this forum on Mosaic, and they said, to summarize it, they said, hey, just like your planes, this will be done on Tuesday. What Tuesday? We don't know. Possibly tomorrow. And they're just winking. And what we knew was the Department of Transportation or something like that was going to make a big announcement that everybody in aviation was going to be happy about on Tuesday. So went to that on Tuesday. And on Tuesday, he announced Mosaic. Now, Mosaic's been around for several years. We saw the meat of it about 15 months ago. So Mosaic is modernization of sport something. So it's basically designed to be Sport Pilot 2.0. That covers a lot more than Sport Pilot, though, because it covers light sport planes. And trust me, you want to know a lot more about this. But it was hilarious because we're at this press conference with the head of FAA/Department of Transportation. I can't remember what his title is. But we're there, and he announces it, and we're all happy about it, and he announces it completely wrong. So about half the details that he said were completely wrong. And it was there were questions being asked. There were people in the FAA kind of whispering around, trying to answer it for people that were there. So that was fine. Now, Wednesday was the hottest day at Oshkosh. It was also the day that the ASTM committee was meeting all day, which is me. So we all sat in a room that was very cold air conditioning all day on the hottest day of the week. So, hey, I suffered for you all. There were about,
thank you for your service.
Yeah, exactly. There were about 35 people in that room. About 10 of them were the FAA. So, and others were manufacturers of experimental planes that you would know, and a lot of weird things as well. So that was a great day to sit through and learn about a lot more about this. Okay, but let's back up. First of all, this is what I understand about Mosaic. I've read the 700-page document. I read the notice of proposed rulemaking when it came out like 15 months ago. I understand a lot of it. I'm bad at communicating, and this is just me that knows this. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not anything. So, but I know more about this than you two, so I am now the expert in the room, for some level expert. Mosaic covers a lot of things. It covers a lot of weird flying machines. We're not going to talk about those. Helicopters, gyros, powered lift like the V-22 Osprey, where it converts from going vertical to horizontal with wings. eVTOL, automated flight, simplified flight controls, space support vehicles, and former military planes. Not going to talk about any of those. We're an airplane podcast, and we can barely handle that. So that's what we're going to focus on here. Specifically, Mosaic talks about what we all know as light sport planes, like the Egg, right, which were historically limited to 1320 pounds. That is SLSA, Special Light Sport. Those can be converted into Experimental Light Sport, ELSA. The step below that is EAB, which is experimental, as we all know, experimental planes like vans. Those are the ones that have to be 51% built by the builder. 51, yeah, built by the builder. That makes sense. Those are the things we're going to talk about. In the notice of proposed rulemaking, FAA can only make changes from that until the final version based on comments. So they can, if we didn't ask for it, they couldn't make any changes on it. They also couldn't make any changes of things they hadn't already addressed. There were like 1,300 comments on there. There were a lot of orgs like AOPA and EAA and a bunch of others like even did like these combined comments, and they talked about all that. Out of those 1,300 comments, there were 11 that were against the rule change. There were 22 that said, I support it as is, make no changes. The rest of the 1,300 comments said, we agree, make a change, but you need to make changes to this before it goes final. So everybody's in support of it. They just got some things wrong. If you go and read this, it'll be in the doobly-doo, the link to this. You can find it in some places. ALPA, the Airline Pilots Association, every comment they make is like, we don't want any expansion because this takes away from what professional pilots do. It was kind of hilarious. It's rent seeking is the term for it, where they just want to protect themselves. So they were the only ones that were like consistently like trying to quash everything. So my opinion on that. Now, when this rule came out, they said, hey, sport pilots and light sports are now, instead of being a 45 knot VS1 or clean stall speed, we're going to go to 54 knots. And everybody's like, and everything was based on that. Out of the 1,300 comments, almost 500 of them came back and said that stall speed is wrong because 54 knots basically means you can fly a Cessna, but you can't fly a Piper. Everything about this is based on safety. And so it's like, what's the argument for this 54? Why could a sport pilot go out and train in a 172, but couldn't train in a Piper 140, right? And really pushed them to justify that. Now, when it came out final, these are the two numbers to keep in mind. Sport pilots are limited to 59 knots VS1, clean stall speed. The category of light sport, of airplanes, is limited to 61 knots VS0. So flaps out. That's a lot faster than 59 VS1, right? So you got to separate those two things between what a sport pilot can do and what the airplanes can do. We're going to keep talking about that. Just remember the difference in those two.
All right, can we pause there for a second just to
Yes.
make sure. So I fly a Cherokee 180.
Yep. I can now fly your Cherokee 180.
You can now fly my Cherokee 180.
Yep.
And and we'll get into more of these things, but you could take a passenger in a Cherokee 180.
Yeah. As a sport pilot, I can fly a plane with 4 seats. I can fly 1 passenger. 1. That didn't change. We all hoped it would change to be more, but as a sport pilot, I'm still limited to 1 passenger, but I can fly a plane with 4 seats. That's a big deal.
And that was not immediately clear to me when the first ruling aspect of it came out. I think a lot of people were not clear on that. So I'm just assuming that what you're saying is true.
Yeah. Well, let's just say when Road Rules Real World Champion Sean Duffy got up there and explained it from the podium, he got it wrong. So it was entirely confusing. Light sport planes, which is again 61 knots, can have 4 seats, and you as a private pilot could fly a light sport plane with all 4 seats occupied. Me, I could fly the same plane if it was a little slower than that 61. I can fly that with only 1 seat. So that's why, keep in mind, there's a big difference between the plane and the pilot in this.
So
and this is why it's huge for you as a private pilot.
And for everybody out there. So
Yes.
technically speaking, because it's no longer based on weight, the Beast is now a light sport
Yes.
because
Well, no.
it's stall speed.
It can be flown by a sport pilot.
Sport pilot, yeah. It can be flown by a sport pilot. Thanks for that clarification.
Yes.
There ain't nothing light about that airplane. Just
No.
hold that nose off once.
So-
but it's 56 knots is the or 50 knots is the stall.
Well, so just pause there for a second before we even get into the rest of this. Think about how momentous that is.
Yeah.
I mean, so Ted, for you, this must feel
It's huge.
just like a massive dam has broken. It's something that we, private pilots probably take completely for granted, and you are just as capable as anybody else. Granted, they won't let you kill any more than one other person at a time, which is fine.
I don't have
But,
friends, so it works out well. Yeah.
You're the introvert. This is like written. Did you
Exactly.
not write these rules? I
Oh,
think maybe you
darn.
wrote-
Yeah.
But I feel like it must just be, I don't know. There's something. Tell me if this is right or not. As a sport pilot and as a light sport plane person, is there a feeling of being less than that is pervasive in some way, even if it's subtle?
There always is, especially at the 1320 limit, right? Like when you can't even fly a Cessna 140, right? Let alone a Cessna 150, which would be huge, right? Like, and
This is too
now
much plane.
I could walk in any school and rent whatever plane they have.
So this
well, in
would
90
be
days,
like
but-
correct me if this is a bad analogy, but I'm 16 years old and I've got $3,000 in my pocket and I want to go buy a car. Well, I have very limited options.
Yeah.
Now I'm 57 years old and I have, not me, but I have $7 million in the bank.
Yes.
What am I going to go buy? It's whatever I want to go buy.
Yep.
It's a little bit extreme, but your avenue of airplanes is just completely exploded.
It
So-
is. Yeah.
So I have one more slight derailment, but I want you to get back on course with this. And thank you, Ted. So my curiosity now is you're talking about, hey, I can go. You just said I can go to any flight school, pretty much, right, and check out any plane that I want. Is there going to be a hesitation from a policy business to business level where they just say we don't want to do that, or they're not in sync with insurance requirements and all of that?
My experience has been they don't understand what their insurance allows them to do more than the insurance doesn't allow it. For instance, the school I trained at and some of the others that I visited, because I visited quite a few, they said, well, you have to have a medical for our insurance. I said, great, pull up the insurance. The insurance says if your license category requires a medical, you must have a medical.
Right.
So it already is set up for that. And that's been my experience getting insurance for my own plane as well. So it's mostly been confusion on the thing. And this is the joy of a sport pilot is you spend half your time explaining this even to your DPE.
Yeah.
So I want to explain the whole philosophy that the FAA uses for this is what they call the safety continuum. And the whole point is the fewer people you can hurt, the more flexibility you can have, and the more they'll allow you to do, the less regulation there is. By the time you get up to a 757, there's a lot of regulation. In between, depends on how important it is. So your planes are both at one level. Experimental is way below that, and light sport is somewhere in between. The data shows that the crash and fatality rates of light sport and standard category are pretty similar. The light sport data is kind of noisy, but they're pretty similar. Experimentals have a crash rate that's about twice as high as standard category, and a fatality rate that's closer to 3 times.
Huh.
Part of FAA's motivation here, again, this is not sport pilot. Their motivation is to get people out of experimentals and into light sport, because they want to get people out of experimental again. Experimental has been the place where there's been a lot of of market movement. You can do a lot of things. There are not a lot of new planes that are not experimental. This is their attempt to relax some rules to move people up into a, let's say, slightly certified plane rather than experimental, because it's a category that's safer. They have no control over experimental in any way. So that's their goal here. And their justification for all this is based on safety. So when it comes to stall speed, they said, hey, we set it to 54. People are asking for up to 70. Where's the argument? And this literally I heard from the FAA in our closed room meeting. They said, we took all the data, we blanked out manufacturer names, we looked at stall speeds, we looked at fatality rates. There was no argument for us to be at 54. That's why we moved it to 59 and 61, because there was nothing that said a 54 knot stall speed was any safer than a 59. So again, every argument is based on that. How can they give more flexibility to us as pilots, not just sport pilots, all pilots, get us out of experimentals if possible, and maintain a level of safety that they were comfortable with. So
fascinating.
Yeah. Okay, so that safety continuum, experimental, why they wanted to get things out of that. There's a lot of detail about that. Before we move to airplane, this is the one section of the rule that I wrote down because it's so important, which is 22.105. A light sport category airplane must be consistently and predictably controllable and maneuverable at all loading conditions through all phases of flight, and not have a tendency to inadvertently depart controlled flight or require exceptional piloting skill, alertness, or strength. This is, Brian, what you've always said, which is let go and the plane will fly itself. The best thing you can do is get out of the way if you're stalling or anything else, right? If you have an engine failure, if you're stalling, whatever, this shouldn't take a superhero to control this plane. That's kind of their guiding principle on this category of aircraft. They don't want to get involved as long as it's safe and stable to fly. Okay, so airplanes. There are two dates associated with these rules. The one is in 90 days, October 22nd, we'll get to that, is when the sport pilot stuff changes. The airplane stuff doesn't change for a year. Well, why is it a year? That's a long time from now. Again, straight from the FAA. We are thankful to the one person who submitted a comment out of 1,350 comments that said delay this for a year, because the date this goes into effect, which is a year from now, the current standards can no longer be used. Also, the new standards have not been written. So there's a mad dash in the next year for the ASTM F-37 committee to finish the rules so that we can have new light sport planes. Otherwise, we have no planes that come out that meet these standards. There is no such thing. ASTM is the standards organization that did these last time. Anybody can technically do it. We could, as a podcast, come out and come up with standards and ask for the FAA to accept them. The reality is it's probably just going to be the STM that does it.
Everybody knows we have no standards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You guys, you're safe. Okay, so airplanes that are in the new light sport category. Again, not talking sport pilots, talking light sport planes. 61 knots VS0. Flaps out, stall speed at CAS, calibrated airspeed. It's not true airspeed. It's more like corrected indicated airspeed. People wanted it to be changed to indicated, but the thing is, like, there's variation on that depending on where you place your pitot tube. And we can make it fit because we put our pitot tube in the wrong location. Not a good thing. Roughly speaking, It's somewhere between IAS and
Or-
TAS. Yeah.
Putting a pitot tube just facing the wrong direction.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, we met it. We put chewing gum over our
Introducing the
static
new
port.
introducing the new 45-degree angle pitot tube.
Yeah, exactly. The Concorde is now.
It's got like a little electric motor, and it's like you put it in a sport or light sport compliance mode, and it just goes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so 61 knots stall speed. It used to be the limitation was one piston engine. There are no engine or power limitations now. So you can have a light sport that's a twin. You can have a light sport that's a turbine, that's a over 200 horsepower piston, or if you think about these other categories, a half dozen or a dozen electric motors, right? Which is kind of considered to be safer because one of a dozen fails, who cares, right? So this category, again, we're talking airplanes, not pilots. The category has no engine restriction. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So as long as you can meet the 61 knot stall speed, which is pretty easy to meet, you can put in this new category, which is so much easier to meet than a standard category plane. You can also do aerial work. Aerial work is hard to understand completely. Again, we're on the safety continuum. It doesn't include flying passengers, including for sightseeing. It doesn't include flying packages, but it does include glider towing, photography, agricultural stuff, all that kind of stuff is what it includes. The whole idea is they just don't want there to be a lot of people involved in it. Just things that used to be you could only do things that weren't. It had no work involved in it. So, strangely, glider towing was in the 2004 rule, but because of the way it was written, you could never certify a plane in the light sport category to tow a glider. Everything else was written there. There was just a technicality of how they did it that they missed it. So that's all fixed. Aerial work, they go on and talk about that. There's a couple other things that were in there that I thought were interesting. The one is if you have a bubble canopy, think about every RV plane or anything else that just has that, simple bubble canopy. You've got to have rollover or egress ability in it. And they're like, well, we'd probably meet that with an egress tool or with a roll bar. So I thought that was good. There were also changes for our experimental friends. A lot of people have read the rules for experimentals, and it says, hey, no flight over congested areas. That's always misunderstood. It really means in your initial testing period, you can't fly over congested areas. So they changed that. They relaxed that quite a bit. And there's a lot more experimentals. So this really helps those people out. Let's see. Determine what my last one was here.
Zach asked the question, and I want to know it for myself as well. Does the over 200 horsepower still require high performance endorsement?
For pilots. We're talking airplanes, though.
We're talking airplanes.
We're talking airplanes. We'll get to that. Yeah.
Okay.
So their whole thing was, we believe that this will help us with safety because these planes will be heavier. They won't blow around as turbulence as much. And it'll be more attractive to private pilots because it's more useful. And that will increase the safety of the overall thing, of the overall category. So they're very explicit about that. As a reminder, this is all based on stall speed. It is not based on the weight of the plane. So light sports were limited to 1320 before. There's no limitation as long as you meet the stall speed. And you have 4 seats or less.
How many seats does a C-130 have?
Oh, I've thought about that too. Yeah. How big of a plane you could only put 4 seats in and do.
I mean, you could put 6 seats in there and
what is the stall speed of a C-130? It's got to be super low. I mean, seriously, it's.
I know. Yeah.
So, and I think I know the answer to this, but our friend Barry asked, my airplane, I don't know without the stall kit, I don't know what the stall speed is, but if it has an STC with a stall kit, is it based on the factory or on the STC?
Yeah, STC doesn't help. There were lots of comments about that. They justified themselves to not include that. Whatever.
Stall speed of a C-130 is 89 knots.
Ooh.
Sorry.
Oh, you just missed it.
So we just need your the Beast kit on it, and we'll get it below that. So then the next question is, can you make your plane LSA? Could you just turn the Beast into an LSA? No. once it's had a certificate, you can't downgrade it. Now, that doesn't mean that Cirrus won't come out with the SR20 LSA for new models, but an existing one can't change categories. And they go on.
Quick thought experiment. What would happen if that were not the case?
Well, it's almost like turning your plane into an experimental, right? Like you're giving it lower standards.
But wouldn't we all just run to that? I mean, to just get out of certification and this and the
then you upgrade your panel for $7,000 instead of $70,000.
Exactly. But when this takes effect in a year, any manufacturer can certify a new plane under either category. And they literally talk about that as well. So that's really good news, especially because, we're not going to talk about standard category, but in the primary category, since 1992, there have been 53 aircraft with 7 type certificates. 53 since 92. In the light sport category since 2004, there have been 3,500 aircraft and 200 designs. So, which is working a little better? Yeah. So that's the beauty. Okay, we got a lot to cover. We're going to move on to Sport Pilot.
Before you do that, Ted, do you have any questions for us?
Questions for you? I'm ignoring everything that people are saying because I have a lot to cover. Now, I will say the Cessna 206, 208, you can't take seats out and make it a 4-seater. It was a great idea. A lot of us thought about it. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I will say that an earlier comment from our friend Nathan Ballard wants to know when you're going to put the egg up for sale and go buy a TBM.
Yeah. Well, I did sit in Erica's TBM. We had a great time. A bunch of us friends of our pod came and we all sat in it.
More FOMO.
Yeah, Erica's so great. I'm not selling the egg.
Were you sitting around with them and they were all saying, "Man, you should just start your own podcast." Like, what do you? Those guys are sandbagging you, man.
Yeah. And Dev Cannon, I've never heard Ted talk this much. I know. I'm sorry. We'll get back to the normal next week. And the ones people want to listen to.
This is awesome. Keep going, please. Let's talk about the pilot.
We have so much to cover. That's why I'm just talking fast and moving on.
Carry on.
And ignoring you. Okay, Sport Pilots. Again, 59 knots VS1. Now, the planes were 61 knots VS0. 59 knots VS1. Clean stall speed. So if you figure the difference between VS1 and VS0 is 5 or 10 knots, that's significantly slower. But 59 knots VS1 is crazy high as well. Probably covers a 5,000-pound plane. So, fantastic. Now, the way it's written is 59 knots at the aircraft's maximum certificated takeoff weight and most critical center of gravity. I think they specifically call out the 182 because instead of rearward being the biggest problem, it's frontward CG being the biggest problem.
That's right.
So wherever it is, that's how it's measured. Also, this is somewhere forward in my notes. We're going to cover it out of order, but if it's not listed in the manual, you can cover it and you can test it just like any other experimental plane is tested. AC 90-89C. So hey, you can figure out what your stall speed is. So they've kind of covered their bases on that. Okay, so Sport Pilots are limited to this 59 knots. We're not going to talk about VS1, VS0 anymore. Call it 59 knots. Limited to 59 knots. Doesn't matter if it's LSA or not. Anything that meets the shape of a Sport Pilot plane, a Sport Pilot can fly. So design and performance limitations is what they call it. 59 knots, controllable pitch propellers. In the NPRM, it was only automatic controllable pitch. So any controllable pitch, whether it came from the factory with it or not. Again, that was a big change. So apparently there were Piper Cubs that came with a CS prop. Then they got removed. So that would have been a problem for Sport Pilots. So CS props, retractable landing gear. That's huge. That's really huge.
Massive.
Yeah. The disappointments, altitude limitation wasn't changed. there were a bunch of people that want, including me, that wanted it to be changed from 10,000 plus 2,000. They're like, nope, we're not going to give it to you. IFR and IMC, they justified not changing that on two things. One is the amount of training, and the second is the scope of the rulemaking. They hadn't suggested it, so they couldn't change it after the proposed. This is the one that surprised me the most. On the night expansion, which was sport pilots can fly at night, we're all surprised in the proposed rule that it said, hey, you have to have a basic med or third class. They said, most comments oppose the medical qualification requirement, but we're going to do it anyway. So the final rule said you have to have a third class or a basic med. I happened to sit on the tram next to a woman from FAA Medical, and I said, hey, that was a disappointment. She's like, well, you can just get a basic med if you can't get third class. I'm like, no, you can't. you cannot. You have to get
You're the
third
FAA.
class first.
So
she was also on the wrong tram, going the wrong direction. So
so they just didn't understand that that is a, and we could talk for days about how FAA medical problems exist in many ways, but this is one of the other psychological sort of gauntlets that sport pilots go through, because if you opt for, and this is important, I think, to help people remember or understand, is that you have the ability to take that gamble. Mm-hmm. You're not flying sport because you're barely capable of doing anything, right?
Well, also that, but not exclusively that.
but the whole point is just to say that if you went for if your goal was to get basic med, and you had to go get a third class first so that you could then go get a basic med, if you go, it's so important that people remember this and know that this is to be true. You go and apply for that third class medical, and any weird number of random surprise things could come. You're not trying to pull one over on your medical, but something comes up in that process that is perhaps largely inconsequential, if not completely inconsequential, but you're just being susceptible to this new matrix of consideration. You apply for that, you go for that, you get denied that, then not only do you not get the opportunity to then go and get your basic med and kind of sit back on that for a while, you cannot go back to sport. You're done.
Correct. Yep. The minute you're deferred, let alone denied, you cannot fly on a sport pilot license.
Zyla Foxland's in that position.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's right.
They said FAA does not regulate based on concerns that a person would be deferred or be deterred from obtaining night privilege because of concerns of being denied a medical certificate that could later affect basic med or other certification considerations. So they're basically like, hey, look, we know that you're concerned about, and I have lots of quotes in here about that. They're like, look, yeah, we get it. We understand that, but sorry. That was the thing they're most stubborn on in this, because the whole thing about this 700-page NPRM is they kind of answer all the comments and justify themselves. This is the one that were like, well, that's how it is. We're not making any changes. I was very surprised by that. So I was disappointed about night. Now, it's fine for people that are stepping down, which is a lot of people, right? You can step down from a private and exercise sport you have your private pilot ticket. You used to have a third class. You might still have basic med. Just operate as a sport pilot. You can only have one passenger. That's fine. You can now fly at night because you've got basic med. So it's great for that situation. Okay, so the next question I had was, hey, Ben, what do I need to do to fly your plane? That's a lot bigger than what I've flown, right? What endorsement is required? What can I do to go out and fly your 182 with a constant speed prop, or
200 horsepower?
Yeah, or Marks with a fixed prop, which is still a lot more flying than I'm used to. So Marks 235, I could go out and fly tomorrow. No, there's no endorsements required, unless it's over 200 horsepower or a constant speed or retract. There's obviously going to be transition training. They're just not requiring it. For a retract or constant speed prop, there isn't, and I believe for a high performance, there is an endorsement required.
Which is the same for a private pilot.
Yeah, exactly. That's not a surprise, but it's interesting that they went from 1320 to anything else with no no tie. So yeah.
I was just thinking, well, of course they need if those have to be at parity between private and sport. If they, if you could not, if you could be sport pilot, oh well, that spares me all that pesky transition training.
Yes. Yeah. Now, Ben's over here saying, yeah, over my dead body, can you fly my plane with no training? So,
That's gonna be your next year, Ted. Is
Look,
you feel like
you've got more experience in so many different airplanes. I'd probably train you more than I do half the other people that I know that are good pilots.
I want to go around. I want to do a doc. I want to follow you around for a year, Ted.
man.
And it's called "Can I Fly Your Plane,
yeah,
Sir?"
Yeah, exactly. I'm just walking into every FBO and every hangar. Just legally, I can fly it. Let me show you the 700-page document, and I'll show you the highlighted parts. Now, as Barry says, there's a waiting period of 90 days. Yes, that started from last Friday, so it goes to. Oh, let me look at my notes. I believe it's October 22nd is the date.
2025.
Yeah, of this year. So that's 90 days from the date it was published. So that's like the big date. I'm hoping on that day I can go to my local school and fly a 150 and 172 just to actually solo in those, because that's a big deal for me. But yes, roughly speaking, all of the stuff that deals with sport pilots is 90 days. All the stuff that deals with airplanes is a year. So you can look at the details if I'm missing. Yeah. Okay. So, sport pilot. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to cover. I covered VS1. Sport pilots can't do multi-engine. I was really unclear about that, and I had to dig in quite a ways because they don't actually cover it very well. Even though the category can have multi-engine planes, a sport pilot cannot obtain those. So, that's too bad for me. Okay. I hope my experimental friends are listening. Maintenance. So we're talking about LSRM, Light Sport Repairman is the name of it. It's actually LSRM-airplane or something like that. I don't really care. We all know it as LSRM. That is the certification you can get to work on light sport planes that takes roughly 80 hours to be a full repairman. You can get inspection privileges with 16 hours. So instead of 1,500 hours of being an apprentice and becoming an A&P, in light sport, you could always do that with 16 to 80 hours, depending on the course. They kept that, which is amazing. It was not in the NPRM, in the proposed rulemaking. It was in the final. They said, hey, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, that was my when I first heard all this, I thought, is this another way? Until I learned that, yes, the certification cannot be walked back. Once you're certified, you're certified. Because I just thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be, the gates are open. Now we can work on our planes, or but well, not really.
Think about this though. Your Cirrus, what I'm calling the Cirrus SR20 LSA, you could go out and take a 16-hour course, and you could do your annual inspection on it. 16
Insane.
hours, fantastic. Because what they said was, again, we're on the safety continuum. We're getting down that category to planes. We're allowing more things because the risk is something we can accept. So we don't need to have you take a 1,500-hour course of being an A&P to do this. Which when you become an A&P, you can work on like anything. You can go work on like 737s, like with that. So they're like, no, let's just step this down. Let's let the LSRM work on any light sport, including this new expanded light sport category of planes, certified planes, right?
Yeah. In 20 years, this is going to look very different, right?
This is fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a big deal. I am really looking forward to there being more than the one school that exists that's like an hour outside of Kansas City that offer these courses. Because they're like, hey, you can always go camp in our yard for 2 weeks to get this course. I'm like, can we offer this somewhere else? So hopefully it becomes more popular because of this. Now, here's the thing. This always excluded experimental. And they got enough comments on it that they're like, you know what? Experimentals on our safety continuum are crazier, are more risky. There's no reason that an LSRM can't work on or approve condition inspections on an experimental. Why is this big? Because everybody who, like our friend Grizzly, he bought his EAB, his 51% constructed by someone plane. He bought it from the builder. Only the original builder can do a condition inspection on it. The person who does the annual on it has to be an A&P. That's kind of been a problem because a lot of A&Ps are like, I don't want to touch experimentals. So some people fly their planes to the original builder to get the annual done. They said with this 16-hour course that you can do for light sport, you can now do that for experimentals.
That's amazing. I was just thinking about if it was the same for cars. You sell your used car, whatever, you sell it to somebody, and then they come back to you like, I've got to drive it back from Kansas to get you to approve this thing because I can't get anybody to work on it.
So all of our people that have bought an EAB that they did not originally build it have always been stuck. Now, 16-hour course. I can't explain how big this is to that crowd.
Imagine. Yeah, that's huge.
This is huge because what they said was, again, safety continuum. This is further to the one side, so if we allow you in the middle, why don't we allow you over here? It's amazing. They did a few other things in there. They're working. Okay, now I don't understand this completely, but they're moving away from these hour requirements to performance based, meaning. You don't have an hour minimum. You just need to show that you meet the standards. These 16-hour courses already meet the standards, but now you can do it with any hour number, just as long as you meet the standards. It has to do with meeting parts of the ACS for mechanics that apply to single engine pistons that are experimental. It's like you don't have to follow stuff for turbines and everything else. But it's good news because it may mean in the future that you have less hours to do than even 16 or than 80 to do this. So amazing. This is fantastic. A couple of the things I want to cover from the maintenance part. One of the things that I've always explained, a lot of people are confused. They think that I have an experimental because my instruments, for instance, don't need to be certified instruments. So instead of putting in a G3X that costs $30,000, I can put in the same one experimental people do that costs $10,000. The thing is, the way ASTM works and all that is we always have said that the manufacturer controls any changes you make to the plane. That's why I have written at least 3 engineering documents to make tiny changes to my plane because I have to get the manufacturer's blessing. Instead of like what you guys can do, which is crazy, you have more privilege than I do for this, but you can make a minor alteration without needing to ask Cessna for approval or Piper if you happen to be a low-wing fan. I had to go to the original manufacturer. It's especially a problem for manufacturers. They're like, yeah, we're not going to answer our email. I've been able to do it, but I've been lucky for that. FAA came back and they said, let me quote this, FAA disagrees with commenters' understanding that only the original manufacturer can authorize major repairs or major alterations to light sport category aircraft. They also said, we intend to develop guidance in an advisory circular on the maintenance requirements for light sport category aircraft, including guidance for understanding and applying requirements concerning minor repairs and minor alterations. So those minor alterations can be accomplished without authorization from the manufacturer or a person acceptable to the FAA. The point is, as of now, although this has been true since 2004, I can go to my mechanic and say, hey, I want to change out my landing light. Because you guys can do that. I can do that. That's a minor alteration. That's no big deal. I've never been able to do that.
It's an advisory anyway.
Well, an AC would be. They're saying in an AC they're going to explain how it's been misunderstood for 20 years.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Now, what I heard in these private committees was what you should do is write the log entry and add a supplement attached to it explaining why this is a safe thing to do. And I think really what they mean by that is anytime it's something that could possibly be seen as being risky, add a document justifying it. So this makes the plane safer by ... That's fantastic because these stupid documents that I send that have to be approved by the U.S. and by the company in Germany. I don't have to do that for silly little things. I'm amazed by that. So
Although it is
you
cool
can
to get.
strap. I'm sorry, Brian.
I was just gonna say, I was just gonna say it is cool to get mail from Germany, though.
yes, well, at least I don't have to get it from Ukraine where it was built. So
Sorry, Ben.
No, my bad. I was going to say you can strap 35 millimeter cannons on there so you could shoot birds before they hit your airplane. I mean, it's the safety of flight.
I like it. So. Safety of flight. Yeah.
So I have one question. I have 37 questions, but here's the thing. I want everybody in the chat now to just start firing away at all the questions. Ted, you go through and pull whatever you want and just start speaking to them. And while that's getting fired up, and I know you've got some back channel or back questions to kind of get to here in the chat, but we've got plenty. But now's the time, folks, to load it all up here. But in the meantime, while people are throwing their questions in the chat, I just have a question, which is more about, it's helpful, obviously, to understand the present and what this really means and who it applies to and the differentiations between sport pilot and light sport airplanes and all the things. Thank you, by the way, for keeping those distinctions clear throughout this amazing breakdown, and especially doing this from an undisclosed location. So, but my question is, and it's speculation, I suppose, but what do you think are the broader market implications over the next, say, 10 years? What are we going to see happen? What opportunities, what areas of opportunity now do manufacturers have? Do pilots have? Do training institutions? I mean, you've brought in so many things. I'm just curious about what you're seeing in your mind's eyes, where the floodgates are going to be open and where the market's going to be changing, and will flying for anybody be any remotely more affordable?
Let's look at the experimental manufacturers. Sling Vans are the two big ones. Sonex, Zenith maybe, but I know specifically about Sling and Vans. They have both implied strongly or said directly they will be manufacturing planes now. So instead of, hey, you can get a kit from us or we'll build assist with you, you'll be able to go buy a plane from them directly. That is amazing. We've had no new planes in the U.S. I'm excluding a few, right? But we all know there have been very few planes in the U.S. The innovation has been in Vans, Sling, Sonex, Zenith, all these new manufacturers. Now they don't have to do this technicality or these loopholes like Cubcrafters does. Cubcrafters is like, oh, the 51%, you don't have to do 51% of the work. You have to do 51% of the processes. So we're going to be put in one rivet, we'll put in the rest of the rivets. We're going to be doing one thing, we'll do the rest. And they technically meet it. Now, that isn't a problem, right? They can just go ahead and build these planes, sell them as SLSA or even ELSA. So if you're Mark, Wendell Geek, and you're like, I still want an experimental, that's fine. ELSA. ELSA is basically an SLSA that you've just flipped the switch on. It's all done. We're going to see fewer of the, obviously the 1320 restriction goes away. We're not going to have to worry about that anymore. We're not going to be worried about 2 or 4 seats. So this is good for all of us. SLSAs can be used for training. ELSAs and EABs cannot, but SLSAs can be used for training. And we're going to see a lot more of those in the fleet. So part of FAA is saying, look, these planes are aging, and they even link to some things. I'll try to put it in the show notes, but this is a very aging fleet. How do we get around that? That is part of the risk of this whole thing is aging fleet, experimental. We need to get into that. So as Deb Cannon says, yes, they're still going to be making kits.
Sling.
Sling is still going to be making kits, and Vans will as well. But they're definitely going to start offering fully built. Vans already offers the RB12 fully built. I've heard for 2 years that they'll offer them all fully built. So because they've known this is coming. Let's see. What other questions do we have? Adam said that I said my egg would get a higher gross. I had a conversation. I won't say it.
Can you read the question again?
Sorry. Adam V. Ted, you said your egg will get higher gross. They talk about this specifically in the rules. My plane was certified under the existing light sport rules. Just because the new ones go into effect in a year doesn't mean my plane suddenly becomes the upgraded plane, right? Just like Brian, your plane doesn't suddenly become a light sport because it qualifies as that.
It is what it is. I'm calling it a light sport.
Yeah, exactly. I identify as a light sport,
Sounds cheaper.
They included some wording, some carve outs to say that there will be paths, and there were at least 2 paths given for that, and I've heard a bit about that from my manufacturer already.
For the upgraded LSA status.
Think about it as Adam says. He says, is that something like an STC? If the manufacturer chooses to, and we can make this all work regulation-wise, I will help pay my manufacturer to do the testing to upgrade the weight capacity in mine. I've heard some numbers that are amazing. And if you think about that, me paying my manufacturer $10,000 to help with the testing of this is huge for me to gain hundreds of pounds of capacity, right? Like, that's beautiful. Like, just $10,000 for a new sticker, my plane's worth a lot more than that just because of that.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. Barry.
Barry's.
Yeah, we both hit it. Go ahead. Barry says, are there weight limits for experimental and LSA repair mechanic? There are no weight limits anymore. Again, we're talking airplanes. We're not talking crazy things like helicopters and gyros. There are no weight limitations anymore. You have a seat limitation of 4, and you have a stall speed limitation. Anything that's certified under that, an LSRM, light sport repairman, can work on. There are no weight limitations anymore. This is huge. This is fantastic.
I just got very hungry when you said that.
So this was from Zach. He said this is as long as the plane qualifies as light sport. For example, an RV10 or 14 has too high of a stall speed, correct or right?
I am unencumbered by the thought process, as they used to say in car talk. I don't know. Whatever the numbers are the numbers. So I thought about coming up with a list. I'm not going to. We can all figure this out. We're going to figure out over time on what the stall speeds of things are. But I've got to tell you that I believe at 59 and 61 that everything that Vance makes, it qualifies.
So this is my question, because I haven't really gotten to ask one yet. And this goes out, this question is on behalf of all the people in our audience who may not have taken that first step to take their private or any license to learn how to fly an airplane. The impact, and you kind of touched on it briefly, but the impact of flight schools and the cost of training. Can you tell everybody, what we think? We're not prognosticators. We don't know, but what do you think about that?
So your private pilot is 40-hour minimum. We know it takes about 85. Sport pilot is 20-hour minimum. It generally takes 65 plus. That is actually a big difference in hours. There are fewer things required to get somebody out the door as a sport pilot. And the thing that I always saw was the people loafing around the airport who are waiting for their medical because they're having issues.
Yep.
Schools won't have that anymore. They make $0 on that, right?
Yep.
They make money on shipping people out the door. So I think this is a big thing for schools.
I think this is a big thing for the Midlife Pilot podcast.
I think so too.
Because there's going to be all of a sudden a bunch of people that have been kept out of this that are now welcome.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, the aircraft themselves will they be any cheaper to rent if you're flying an LSA or any variation thereof?
LSAs tend to be a little, they tend to be competitive with a well-equipped 150 or 172, but you're flying a much newer plane that has this TAA, right?
Yeah.
You can fly a current, like RV-12 out of the factory, all the way through commercial training. Never have to change planes. You can do instrument, can't do IMC. You can do instrument in it. You can do commercial in it. You've got all your TAA time in it. So this is great news.
We touch again on that distinction between instrument and IMC.
Yes. What an issue. And this is being addressed now, but instrument flight, legally, you can file an instrument plan. You can fly an approach in clear skies. IMC, you can fly into a cloud. Those are two different things for a couple of crazy reasons. One has to do with Rotax. As an SLSA, almost exclusively, I think there are some exclusions here, but let's just pretend it's everything. You can file an IFR flight plan with the correct instruments and do that. You cannot fly into a cloud because Rotax does not allow it. You can go experimental and fly into the clouds. I believe Ryan Kay does that with his. There's a bunch of people that do this with, well, he doesn't have a Rotax, but with the ELSA, you can do that because you can ignore Rotax on that. But as far as schools are concerned, you can't.
So
and as far as SLSA, yeah.
You're saying that if you are a sport pilot flying a LSA sport, or you're a sport pilot flying a light sport that has a Rotax, you're saying that, are you saying that a sport pilot can get an instrument rating but not fly an IMC?
No, this is the confusion between sport pilot and light sport plane.
Right.
As a sport pilot, I cannot, well, obviously I can't fly into IMC because I can't get an IFR ticket. I also can't file IFR because if anybody who has their instrument ticket knows, you can't file IFR until you have your instrument rating. I always get confused between rating and certificates and everything else.
Yeah.
And you can't, so if you're halfway through your instrument training, you can't just go out and file, even if you're staying in the clear. That's just not something you're allowed to do. So as a sport pilot, I can't do any of that. Ben, with an IFR ticket, can fly, let's say an RV-12. He can file in the NAS. He can fly an approach.
In a light sport.
In a light sport,
yeah.
He cannot fly into a cloud.
Yeah, so this is, will you please do this and record it? Because I can't wait for you to be asking for a diversion and trying to explain. It's like, I gotta stay VFR, but I'm IFR, but I'm an instrument pilot in a light sport that has a Rotax. It's complicated. Just give me a diversion.
I was in the NACTA, the ATC union. I was in one of their seminars at Oshkosh, and they were like, "Hey, just put your phone number in the flight plan." And this was a seminar. Chuck was with me in this, and it was a seminar for VFR pilots. It was like, your flight plan as a VFR pilot, the ATC never sees that.
Yeah,
it's only for rescue.
It's just flight service
because they're thinking about IFR, where you file a flight plan. So even they're confused by it. So I'm gonna read Wendell Geek there.
Yeah, a small correction from our friend Wendell Geek. Correct, to file IFR, you have to have a rating and be instrument current. So
I didn't know about instrument current. That makes sense, but it's not even an issue for me.
So, and then Adam asks, now is the IMC a restriction of all manufacturers or of the light sport category? I don't think you've explicitly said that yet.
Well, I haven't said it again. This is my thing. This is my understanding of how all of this stuff comes together. I am probably wrong. Again, you're listening to a non-lawyer, non-CFI on the internet. So take this at my value. I know for sure Rotax does not allow flying into IMC. I don't think that the regulations or the standards have been put in place for how to fly into IMC in the light sport category. That committee exists though. So F-37, in a year, the IMC committee hopefully will have all their stuff out so that these planes can be certified.
If I'm not mistaken, I thought I've heard on at some point in time that I think Diamond, the DA-40, is not allowed to go into the clouds.
It's not a light sport.
but that's kind of my point. I think it's
Yeah.
more based on the manufacturer and less of
For
the
sure.
light sport.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Um,
So, and again, you can do it. That's why everybody's confused because they're like, I've seen slings flying into the clouds. Like, yeah, they're experimental. So there is a committee that is working on this.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful. And Ted, I know it's been a lot of talking for you, and we appreciate.
And I'm sorry.
I know
Ted's
you
gonna have to
can.
sleep for a month.
Yeah, I know. Listen, he's got a long flight. He's going to get his air therapy. I don't feel too bad for him.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, by the way, I just want to tell everybody that's listening that this incredibly well thought out, speculative, non-sanctioned interpretation from a person who has been camping for over a week and is in an undisclosed location. If you can't, if you won't even tell us where he is, how much can you really trust Ted is the question here. But I trust Ted more than I trust myself, and so what I'm going to pledge to do here is I'm going to take all of this conversation and your input, Ted, and we're going to write a comprehensive blog post for midlifepilotpodcast.com, have you review, vet everything, and we can put this out there. So instead of people having to go through the show notes and, I mean, we'll still have show notes, but picking away at all that, I think having this replayed as a narrative that you can go through and all the links and everything are kind of there as a blog post, I think this will be huge. And we'll make sure that, Ted, you get a good chance to put your name on it. It'll be called something like Ted reads 700 pages. This is what happened, or something.
Timestamps, travels. I do want to make a quick. We've been corrected by a few of our audience members. It's been pointed out that the DA-20 is the one that cannot fly an IMC. The DA-40 can.
Yep.
And that the DA-20 is an LSA.
No, the DA-20 is not LSA. Trust me on that.
Okay.
There are no diamonds that are LSA. The DA-20 is a two-seater.
So,
So
okay.
yes.
Well, there we go. And then Jeff Rhodes asked, when's the next TED-isode? I like
boy.
that.
Yeah.
In a year, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And hey, I've got to say, in this document, this rulemaking document, 2/3 of it is them responding to comments and justifying it. So all the stuff that I'm saying comes from that. Where they talk about IMC and why they don't allow sport pilots into it. They talk about night and why they're allowing a medical or requiring a medical. They talk about stall speed. So please don't listen to me on that. This stuff all exists in the citations. So that's where I get this from. I'm just here summarizing it. Yeah.
Well, it's been really interesting, and I got a lot out of it. We've had a really active chat tonight, and so we appreciate everybody throwing into your questions. It's been really helpful. So don't forget to email us your feedback on this episode.
Yeah.
I want corrections. Please, all the corrections on this.
Yeah. And next week, look forward to our retraction episode.
Where Ted will be in the comfort of his home. Hopefully.
Ted's in a second, now different, undisclosed location.
He's forever going to be in undisclosed locations after this episode. So yeah, again, send us feedback, midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com. Again, thank you everybody who joined the stream tonight. In honor of Ted, I found a Mark Twain quote. 'Cause Ted likes cats, so I thought of this one, or I read this one. He says,
"The light sport of pets."
The light sport of pets. He says, a man who carries a cat by the tail learns something he can learn in no other way. Signing off, episode 139 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast. Good night, everybody.